Hello, Nick Rinn here with your home DIY electrical projects. Stick around if you want to see how to add an electrical outlet next to your vanity, just like this. All right, today folks, I'm going to show you how to add an extra outlet into your bathroom next to the vanity off an existing GFI outlet. What we've got here is a small little bathroom with not a lot of space. So what we've done is we've added this little niche here to the left side of it to get some of these cords out of the way. As you know, most people have an electric toothbrush nowadays. And in my case, I also have an electric razor that I use for shaving my head. So what I'm doing here is I'm making this little niche so that I can get this stuff off of this vanity and into a niche and tuck all these cords out of the way. So what I'm going to do is add an outlet right here. And today I'm going to show you how to do that. First step when you do any sort of electrical work is you want to make sure that the power's off. You have to guarantee that. Now, me being an electrician, I've got several pieces of equipment, testers that will tell me that. I've got a hot stick, a plug tester. Most homeowners don't have that kind of thing, and that's totally fine. What you can use is a hair dryer, a lamp, or any sort of electrical appliance that you know works, that you can plug into the outlet, go find your breaker box, start turning off the breakers till you find that circuit, or you may already know exactly where that's at, but the only way to guarantee it is to plug something into it and turn it off and make sure that piece of equipment turns off. So today I'm going to use a lamp and start by turning off the power. Okay, now that you've verified that your circuit breaker has been identified and turned off, you can go ahead and disassemble the GFI that's next to your vanity. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Most of these are going to be the same. You're just going to have a cover plate with 2 screws that covers the GFI. And just so you know, GFI stands for ground fault circuit interrupter. It's required in all bathrooms, and it's more of a safety thing for personnel. It helps prevent electrocution and shock in damp areas. Right, now that I've got the plate removed, the next thing I'm going to do is use a screw gun. You can use it by hand, but it's a lot faster to use a cordless drill. They make all different kinds nowadays, so whatever your preference is on that, that's what I recommend. It's a lot faster. So you're going to pull the GFI out. Luckily on this one, it makes it a lot easier. It just has a single wire, so it gives you a lot of room, a lot of working space. Disconnect all the wires individually. Even though I know that this is disconnected, I still work everything as if it's hot. Take the ground wire out. Now I've got the GFI removed. That's what a GFI looks like. It's got a reset button and a test button. You should see those. If you don't see one next to your bathroom, check another bathroom or a garage, depending on when your house was built. That'll tell you exactly where it's at. Some electricians put one in each bathroom. Some only use one per circuit, and it's at the very beginning of the line where that GFI is controlling that outlet in that bathroom. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and get measurements. Make sure I get my outlet centered on this piece of wood right here, both left and right and up and down. So I got a mechanical pencil, which I prefer because they don't get dull, and I want a really sharp edge to get a very accurate mark. And I'm gonna measure it from left to right. I got 13 inches, so centered is gonna be 6.5. And I'm gonna put a mark there. All right, then I'm gonna measure this piece next. It looks like we have, we'll call it 5 inches, so 2.5 up and down, which is right there. Now that I've got my center, I can use the box that I've picked out and go from there and draw my dimensions to make sure I cut the hole. And I want it just big enough that the box fits in, but not too big, because then it has a hard time to get something to grasp onto to be tight on the finished product. So there's a couple different methods you can use as far as centering your box on here. What I prefer to do is use a torpedo level and extend my lines out very lightly with the pencil so it's easy to erase, but just enough you can see it like that. And I'm going to do that both horizontally and vertically. Okay, now that I've got that, that'll be easier to transpose with my box that I'm gonna use. Here's the two boxes that I picked out. One's shallower than the other. It's called a box car or a sidecar. Your wiring goes in that side. This one's straight. If I have enough distance or depth in here, this would be my preference. So I'm gonna hopefully use this one, but I got a couple just in case this wasn't as deep as I wanted. So I got a couple different options. Now I'm gonna trace out this box that I've got picked out. So what I'm gonna do is use these lines as a guide. I've got a mark here showing centered up and down, and I use my screw holes top and bottom to get that. And I'm gonna go ahead and trace this out so that I can make a nice cut and make that fit real nice. Oops, very slippery. You gotta be careful that it doesn't slide around on you when you're using on this slick material. Now you could do this on sheetrock as well. I'm just showing you on this wood because that's what we've got here. So what I'm gonna do next is something that I recommend, and I'm gonna drill a test hole in the middle of this where I'm gonna cut this box. That way I can stick something through the hole and see how deep I have to work with there. Make sure I have the right depth boxes. Insert this piece of wire. There's a little insulation back there too. Poke through that. Put your finger to mark where you're at. Pull that out of there. Now you can compare this to your box, and I've got plenty of depth. So that's good. So for this next step, when I go ahead to cut out the hole in the wood for my electrical box, I'm gonna use a cordless vacuum. This is a pro tip. Basically helps you from a ton of cleanup at the end of your project. If you can vacuum it while you're cutting the hole, it'll suck up a lot of that dust coming off the wood instead of it going all over the area that you're working. So what I'm gonna do is I've got somebody recruited to hold the vacuum while I use my other two hands to use the multi-tool to cut this hole. So that's what I'm gonna show you how to do next. Next step here is we're gonna need to get a wire from this particular location to the new location here. And just for those of you that don't know, you've got three different wires here. What we've got is the bare copper wire is the ground wire. The white is usually your neutral, and the black is usually the hot. Now that is also dependent on who hooked up the other end, but that's normally the circumstances when you see these colors. So what I've got here, I can tell by feeling it, but I also can tell by the size of breakers that this is on a 15 amp circuit. So this is 14 gauge wire. So all I need to use is 14 gauge wire to complete this circuit. Most bathroom circuits nowadays, its code have to be on a 20 amp circuit, which is used. The type of wire for that is 12 gauge wire. But in this scenario, all I need to use is 14 gauge. And so that's what I'm gonna pull right now. I actually had some scrap wire. This is actually 14.3. So this actually has black, red, white, and ground. So I'm just gonna use this and cut out the red because I don't need to use it. So you can always use wire that has more conductors. You can't use wire that has less conductors than what you start with. Now the next step is I gotta fish this piece of wire, this 14.3, from the existing box here to my new location. I'm gonna try to do this without cutting this box out. It may be a little difficult because as you can see, I've got insulation in the wall. Now, if you're doing this at home and you're using an interior wall, you may not have insulation. It may be a lot easier. So I'm gonna see if I can push this through. I don't have any cameras in here, so this is all gonna be from feel. And let's see if we can make this easier than it hopefully doesn't turn out to be. I was having a little difficulty fishing that wire with all of them up at once. I'm not using the red out of that 3 wire, so I just pulled it out of there with a pair of needle nose pliers, and I was able to fish it up through the insulation and grab it up here. So every scenario is going to be different. It's always a different challenge on a remodel, getting the wire to your new location. Luckily, these are fairly close. You know, I could use a fish tape, but I'm trying to show you as a homeowner that normally doesn't have these types of tools, how to do it with what you have at home. So now that I've got this red wire that I'm going to use as a pull wire now, I'll attach on my real wire that I'm gonna use, and I'll pull it into the box. I'll show you how I do that. So what I do on this is I use my dikes here and I cut them so that if you pull this off of here, you want at least one of these wires exposed. Trim the rest off. Now what you can do is make a little hook, and I stick it back into the sheathing itself. You want to make this as small as possible so that it'll fit through there, and you can crimp that down once you get it attached. Now you're going to take this pull wire, do the same thing, pinch this all down to where you have it as narrow as possible. I may even grab a pair of pliers and pinch this closed a little bit, just like so, and like so. And take some electrical tape, or duct tape I suppose would work, but I'm going to use some electrical tape. And I'm going to start down here, make sure that I'm covering this because that sheathing will catch on the edge of your box as you're going out the back of the hole there. So keep a little tension on there. Cover that up all the way. You want to make sure to go all the way up past this so this doesn't catch on the box or insulation. Doubled up a little bit, go a little past there, boom. So something like that, that should be ready to pull through there. All right, did it. It was a little tight, but I got it to fit. So now I've got the wire. It's gonna end here. It's gonna be fed from this circuit here, and we're ready to put it back together. Okay, now that I've got the wire in, the next step is to go ahead and put in my new outlet here. So I always like to work from the load end back to the line end for safety reasons, so I know there's no possible way this could become energized while I'm working on it. So just so you know, this GFI that came out of here that's gonna go back into here is actually controlling the new outlet that I've got right here. And this outlet is not a GFI, it's just a regular outlet with 2 USB ports. They make these now, these are handy, especially for this scenario, because a lot of cordless toothbrushes nowadays are a USB port. So instead of having to put a plug-in adapter and then your USB so it's sticking out this far, this does all your transformation inside the outlet, inside a box, saves you a lot of room. So I went ahead, I mean, you can get all these devices, including the box, at your local hardware store or your local Home Desperate, whichever you prefer. And that's what I've done here today. So I'm gonna show you how to install this, and I'm gonna give you a couple tricks of the trade real quick. So on this particular box, as you can see, there's a notch right here between these two. You see how it's slightly, it doesn't stick out that 1/16 of an inch right here? And if this outlet goes in there and it were to go all the way down, it's gonna stick out another 1/16 of an inch. So on this outlet, you'll see there's a couple of lines right here that divide that both top and bottom. What you wanna do to get this to sit as flush as possible so that your cover fits as flush as possible is you can grab needle nose pliers, grab these little ears here, and you can break them off. And what that'll enable this outlet to do is sit another 1/16 of an inch closer to the wall. And trust me, you're gonna need all that space you can get because there's very low tolerances on these parts to fit flush to the wall. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull all these off so it'll fit more recessed. And just to reiterate again why I'm doing that, is you can see that now when I put that in, that piece is gonna fit in between the 2 gray pieces, fitting more flush to the wall. All right, I've got it in the box here, and these ears right here say it'll go out to 7/8 of an inch. So what I like to do is loosen these as far as I can, make sure it doesn't catch on the wood or the sheetrock or whatever it is that I'm inserting it into. So let's stick these there, loosen that a little bit. Now it's ready to go inside the hole here. So I'm gonna push this wire up and out of the way. Make sure these ears are folded in. We stick that in the box. Now you wanna go easy on these so you feel it getting snug. Boom. Now this one, and there it is. Right, now we're ready to install the outlet. Okay, got that in. Go ahead and strip out the wires. Check these are all straight. Maybe not. Hang on a second. Oh, that one you have to hook. So it looks like on this outlet, you have to make a hook to wrap around there. Some of them have a stab-in plate like these right here, the hot and the neutral. But on the ground, what you have to do is make a little curly cue. It looks like that. Now I'll go ahead and strip these out using my 14 gauge wire stripper. I always do about 1/2 to 5/8 of an inch right there. Now it's ready to go ahead and attach to the outlet. So I always do the ground first. Now on the ground, something to remember, since it's always righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, make sure that you hook it like this and not like that. The reason is, when you hook this on there and you go to tighten your screw, it'll tighten on itself and not away. So if you notice that as I'm tightening this, it'll pinch the top towards itself to lock it on there. If you do it the other way, it'll spread the hook out and not make as good a connection. So I do that. Now you've got ground and neutral. It'll tell you, it says white and hot right there. Another way to identify it is the neutral or white wire always goes to the silver colored screw, and the black or hot wire always goes to the gold color screw. If you can see right there, they're two different colors. Put that in there. Make sure that your clamp doesn't clamp down on the insulation. It's just on the wire itself. Nice and snug. Don't strip it out, but you do want it pretty snug. Same with the hot. Tighten that down. Make sure that's getting snug. Good, just like that. Okay, now that we've got that, we're ready to insert this into the box here, and this part is complete. So I kind of make a turn the wires like that so they fit in there nice and flush. Get that ready. I don't want to go super tight, I just want it snug up against the box. And then before I really cinch them down, I'm going to double check to make sure that I'm level here. Before I tighten this down all the way, I'm going to use my torpedo level and make sure that this device is level. And it's definitely not right now, so I need to loosen this slightly, push that over, and now I can retighten that and it's more level. And now, if you can see, this is all flush, sucking that up closer to the wall, making more room for the plate. All right, so now that I've got that installed, it's pretty much level. I'm happy with that. I got this wooden colored or wooden material cover plate to actually match with this. So see what I did there? Now these are different than a lot. These don't really sit as flush as you'd like them to as the actual plastic ones, but they look real nice, and for certain scenarios, I really like them, especially this one, because it's on a wood background. It looks a lot nicer, I think, and it'll blend in quite nicely once I put all the toothbrush, razor, the shelf, and whatever items I can fit right there. So I got that. Take my 2 trim screws, and let's go ahead and put these in. Next thing I'm gonna do is strip out this wire and start getting this ready. I've got this handy dandy Romex stripper here, and it's real nice because it has this blunt tip so that you don't nick the wires underneath the sheathing. But if you don't have that, you can use a razor knife. You just have to be real careful, but I highly recommend, if you're gonna be doing this, to get one of these tools. It works handy. You basically stick it on the wire like so. You can push, and it will strip both forward and backward, so you can go up in there as far as you like. Come forward, peel that all the way, just like so. Now you can peel that off like that. Get my side cutters and remove the sheathing from inside the box. Careful not to cut the other wires that are in there. Okay, so I've got that removed. Now, since this GFI is going to be protecting these wires, you don't have to tie these together. These actually go separate. If you look on the GFI on the back, it's real hard to see, but it says line across here and load across here. And that's how you're going to identify, since this is your line, being that we know this is the hot circuit, that's going to go up top. And these bottom two are going to be my load going to my new outlet right here. All right, the next thing I'm going to show you how to do here is connect the ground wires, because these do have to be tied together. So you can do this with two methods. One, you can use a wire nut, such as this one I have right here, or these newer connectors here. These are called a stab-in connector. I prefer these. I think they're easier, but either way will work. This one, you would put all three of these once you cut it, wire nut it in, or I'm going to show you, cut these the same length. These just stab right in there. The only thing you got to do is make sure that they go all the way, and you can see there's a little plastic piece there that enables you to see that. Once you get that one in, you just take the other two, stab those in, visually inspect, make sure it's seated in all the way. Once you've confirmed that, that's good. What I'll do is I'll tuck these in the back of the box, kind of in a circular spring-shaped pattern. Make sure it's far back behind as far as I can get it in the back of the box. So now you should just have a ground, your load, and your line side wires, and we'll connect those next after we prep these. I'm going to cut all these the same length, about 6 inches from out of the wall. Strip these out here again about a 1/2 inch to 5/8 inch, like so. And before I put this in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the line and I'm going to do a couple twists on the wires, just so I know what's line and what's load. And for somebody that comes behind you, that's kind of, at least in the state of Oregon, that's a standard practice. Most electricians will wrap or spin the white and black together of the line side of their circuit. So now that I know what's line and what's load, we'll go ahead and start terminating this stuff. I always start with the ground. The saying with the ground is the first to make, last to break, and that's a safety thing there. Okay, I've got that. Now I've got lines on top. So we'll take this, and it says line white, and you can see this is the silver colored screw. Most of the time on most outlets, the silver or neutral side screws are on the same side as the ground. So it's another way to make sure that you're hooking it up right. So stick that in there, tighten that down. Make sure that's nice and snug. Go ahead and do the hot side next. Down to the insulation. Remember, don't crimp down on the insulation. That'll just create a loose connection, which also creates heat, and eventually will create an arc burning through the wire and causing your outlet to either burn up or malfunction. Okay, I've got the line side connected. Now let's go to the load, white. Tighten that down nice and snug. And then last but not least, our load hot in there. Again, nice and snug. Be careful not to strip the screws out. Okay, now that's ready to put in the box. So be very strategic about how you're putting it into the box so that it's easy to go in there because as you can see, it'll get pretty tight with all these wires in there. So I kind of train them to go in the direction that I want. So eventually it'll just go in there nice and easy like so. Okay, grab my screw gun here. Let's start with this bottom screw. Now I'll do the top screw. Get it started anyway. Bottom one. And then again, before I really crank down on that, I'm gonna, if I can fit it level on that. Pretty good right there. Tighten that down. This is on sheetrock, so it's pretty soft material, and I should have used a better screw gun, but I think that'll work. Oop, let me tighten the top just a hair more. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm gonna take my cover plate and reinstall that, and then we should be ready to fire this thing back up and test it. So another tip for you to make it look a little better, I always like to leave once you get them snug, run them up and down. So basically vertically and match them. See how nice that looks? And I did the same up here. You can see my screws, I try to keep them up and down. It looks more professional and it looks more clean. Okay, that's installed. Now we're ready to turn it on and test it and make sure it works. We've got it all back in. I've turned the breaker back on. I'm gonna test power. Of course, you've got a light that you can use or a hairdryer that I've showed you that technique. I'm also gonna show you this. What this is right here is this is a plug tester that also has the capabilities of testing a GFI with this button on it right here. And if you insert this into the outlet like so, and you hit this button, it should trip the GFI and that tells you that it's working right. Then you hit the reset button and it comes on again. Now let's check this outlet up here. And sure enough, it's on. The lighting right up here will tell you that your hot's in the right position, your neutral, and that sort of thing. You can hit this button again, trip the GFI, so we know this is all working properly. Now the reason I'm showing you this is these items right here you can buy at your local hardware store or again, Home Desperate if that's where you choose to go. And this particular one is made by Klein, which is really good electrical tools. And I recommend everybody that is a tenant or a homeowner to get yourself a plug tester. They come in handy a lot so you don't have to use a hairdryer or light, and you can check your GFIs, make sure that everything's working properly. If you find that some of your GFIs aren't working properly, go ahead and call your local electricians. They'll be willing to help you out for a small fee. I just wanted to show you that as one of my tips before I end this episode. I want to thank everybody that's already subscribed for checking out my channel. For those of you that haven't, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and share with your friends. Let me know in the comments what you think of these videos. There's more to come, and I hope you learned something today. We'll see you on the next one.